2,416 days. That is the exact number of days between the front page announcement that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were exiting the British royal family and the night in 2025 when the bombshell reversal was confirmed. Buckingham Palace released a statement confirming the Duke and Duchess of Sussex would continue living as private citizens upon their return. Private citizens. Remember those two words because they are doing an extraordinary amount of heavy lifting in a sentence that conceals far more than it reveals. 2,416 days of interviews trashing the monarchy of a Netflix documentary designed to humiliate Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, of a memoir so vindictive it described private family arguments and physical altercations, of Meghan Markle telling associates she would never set foot in Britain again. And then, at 10 in the evening United Kingdom time, 5 in the evening Eastern time, the whole charade collapsed. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex announced they were moving back to the United Kingdom with their 2 children, Archie and Lilibet, and enrolling them in British schools by September. But here's the part that almost nobody is talking about, the part that I have been tracking for months. This was not a sudden decision. This was not a reconciliation born of love. This was a covert operation with a code name, Operation Thor. And by the time I am done walking you through exactly what is happening, you will understand that the return of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to British soil is the single greatest threat the modern monarchy has faced since the abdication crisis of 1936. Buckle in. Let me take you back first, because we cannot understand the scale of this betrayal without remembering what they actually said, what they actually did. Not the sanitized version being peddled by certain newspapers today, the real version, the receipts. It was 6 in the morning, the 14th of March, 2020, when Meghan Markle filmed herself on that now infamous Freedom flight. She was leaving Canada, heading to Los Angeles, giggling, narrating the escape like it was some kind of adventure movie. The dog had a ball in its mouth. She was talking about a mystery benefactor, someone they had never met, who believed in them and wanted to help. That was the energy. Giddy. Gleeful. Free at last from the supposedly unbearable prison of royal life in the United Kingdom. They landed in Montecito, California, and within months they were sitting across from Oprah Winfrey on national American television, accusing the royal family of racism, suggesting that unnamed members of the household had speculated about the skin color of their unborn child. They named no names, but let the implications settle like smoke in a closed room, knowing full well the damage it would cause to King Charles, to Camilla, to Prince William, to Catherine, to everyone. And it did not stop there. Here is the part that makes the current return so breathtaking in its audacity. When King Charles and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, were both diagnosed with cancer, a reporter asked Prince Harry how he was processing the news from California. His response, and I want you to really absorb this, was to say he had his own family now. That was it. His father, the King of England, had cancer. His sister-in-law, the future queen, had cancer. And his answer was a shrug wrapped in a pronoun. My family is here. My life in California is what it is. That is what he said. Not in some private moment, on American television. Then just last year, he looked into another camera and declared there was no logistical way he could bring his wife and children back to the United Kingdom. He said he could not see a world in which that would happen. He said it was sad. He said some people in Britain had done things, unspecified things. Vague, sweeping, accusatory things designed to paint 67 million people as a collective threat to his family's safety. He even said his children were going to miss everything about his homeland. Everything. So what changed? What possible sequence of events could transform a man who could not see a world in which he would return into a man who is enrolling his children in British schools within weeks? The answer is not what the mainstream press is giving you. It is not about reconciliation, it is not about love, and it is certainly not about homesickness. Stay with me. The first thing you need to understand is the financial picture. It is catastrophic, and I mean genuinely, structurally catastrophic in a way that no amount of Sussex spin can paper over. When Harry and Meghan left the royal family, they had a theory. The theory was that their celebrity value unconstrained by palace protocol, would be worth more on the open market than anything the sovereign grant could provide. They believed they could out-earn the monarchy. They believed Hollywood and Silicon Valley and the global media marketplace would treat them not as minor royals playing at celebrity, but as genuine. A list, talent commanding a list fees. The theory was wrong. Spectacularly, embarrassingly, publicly wrong. They signed enormous deals with Netflix and Spotify. The Netflix deal alone was reportedly worth around $100 million. The Spotify deal was said to be around $25 million. But Spotify dropped them. The podcast was discontinued. The Netflix content underperformed so dramatically that industry sources described the relationship as functionally dead. Meghan launched a lifestyle brand. At the time of the return announcement, you could not even purchase her products in the United Kingdom. Their Montecito mansion, that sprawling estate they bought for nearly $15 million, was sitting in a market where California luxury real estate had softened. The private security they were paying for in the United States was costing them approximately $3 million a year. $3 million. Every single year. And the money was running out. One well-connected royal biographer put it bluntly. They are desperate, he said. They have run out of any hope of conquering Hollywood. They are isolated in America. The money is running down. Harry is terribly concerned about losing his titles. He is desperate about his status in Britain. He is lonely. He has been unable to shape any sort of career in California. And as for Meghan, there is no way she can survive without him and his status. She is humiliated by her failures. That is not my speculation. That is from someone who has written extensively about the inner workings of the Sussex operation and who has sources inside Kensington Palace, inside Clarence House, and inside the Sussex camp itself. The financial desperation is not a theory. It is the foundation of everything that is happening right now. But here is where it gets darker. Here is the thread that most commentators are missing entirely, and this is the part I have been building towards. Ask yourself a question. If you were Prince Harry and you sensed that your marriage was fracturing, and you knew that under California family law, the mother almost always receives primary custody, and you understood that if a divorce happened while you and your children were domiciled in the United States, you would have virtually no chance of getting Archie and Lilibet back to British soil, what would you do? You would move them to the United Kingdom first. Think about that for a moment. Let it settle. Because this is not idle gossip. Multiple credible commentators with direct connections to the royal household have openly suggested that this move is the first stage of a separation. One well-known political commentator wrote publicly that he wondered whether Harry was moving home because he sensed the end was near, was thinking about child arrangements, and did not want to grieve by himself in a lonely Californian mansion denied access to his children. That is not a fringe conspiracy. That was published openly and widely shared. And when you look at the legal mechanics, it makes devastating sense. Under English family law, if the children are habitually resident in the United Kingdom at the time of any separation, British courts have jurisdiction. Under California law, if the children are habitually resident in California, the California courts have jurisdiction. Harry is a member of the British royal family, fifth in line to the throne. His children carry royal titles. In a California court, none of that carries particular weight. In a British court, the royal connection, the children's position in the line of succession, the institutional significance of their upbringing, all of that changes the calculus entirely. Harry does not just want to come home. He needs to come home before a potential custody battle begins, and he needs Meghan on British soil long enough for the children to establish habitual residence in England. After that, whether she stays or goes becomes a very different equation. I want to be clear. I am not saying the marriage is definitely over. I am saying that the legal positioning of this move makes no sense as a reconciliation story and makes perfect sense as a contingency plan. And that is the angle almost nobody in the mainstream press is willing to touch. Now, let me tell you about Operation Thor, because this is where the institutional machinery kicks in. According to multiple reports, Operation Thor is the code name for a long-term project to facilitate Prince Harry's return to the United Kingdom and his gradual reintegration into some form of royal life. This was not hatched overnight. This was not a spontaneous decision triggered by homesickness or Trumpian deportation fears. This was coordinated, planned, staged. The news broke first in the Daily Telegraph, but here is the detail that should make you sit up. A specific reporter at that newspaper has become what insiders describe as the chosen correspondent for Harry and Meghan. She was given the exclusive. She revealed that Harry had personally told her that the British public secretly adores Meghan. He actually believes this. He believes that when he visits the United Kingdom on his own, people ask him where Meghan is, how she is doing, and that this constitutes evidence of public affection. He genuinely thinks she will be welcomed back as some kind of homecoming queen. Within minutes of the Telegraph story, the couple confirmed the news directly to the BBC. That timing is not coincidence. That is a coordinated public relations operation. The Telegraph gets the exclusive to give the story establishment credibility. The BBC gets the confirmation to give it institutional weight. People magazine in the United States gets a parallel exclusive in which Meghan frames the move as being driven by political disillusionment with the current White House. 3 outlets, 3 angles, 1 synchronized rollout. This is the Sussex PR machine at full throttle, and it is designed to control the narrative from the very first minute. And what did the British government say? The new Prime Minister went on camera and called it a private matter. A private matter. Let me explain why that phrase should make your blood pressure spike. Because Prince Harry has been personally and directly lobbying the British government about his security provision. He has fought through the courts multiple times, arguing that he is entitled to taxpayer-funded police protection. He lost. The reason he lost is spelled out in court documents that are publicly available. One of the primary factors in the determination that he did not qualify for government security was that he did not live in the United Kingdom. He was not in the cohort of people who qualify for that level of protection because he was domiciled overseas. Do you see what just happened? By moving back, he ticks that box. He re-enters the category. And if King Charles gives him even a minor role at a minor charity, something that makes him technically a working royal again, then under the existing framework, he becomes entitled to security, not just in Britain. Everywhere in the world, every trip to Nigeria, every jaunt to Colombia, every appearance at the Invictus Games, all of it funded by you, the British taxpayer, to the tune of millions of pounds per year. That $3 million he was spending on private security in America? Gone. Transferred to the public purse. And the Prime Minister calls it a private matter. I want you to hold that thought because we are going to come back to it. First, let me show you the international reaction because it tells you everything about how the world really sees these two. The New York Post, the biggest tabloid in America, ran a front page declaring, and I am paraphrasing here, that their long national nightmare was over. Pro-Trump commentators openly celebrated the departure, framing it as a deportation victory. One prominent broadcaster called it the greatest deportation of the Trump presidency. The Heritage Foundation, which has been pursuing a legal case arguing that Prince Harry lied on his United States immigration documents about his drug use, was widely credited with accelerating the timeline. Whether or not you agree with the politics, the message from America was unmistakable. Good riddance, we never wanted them. Get out. And that is not just conservative media speaking. That sentiment crossed party lines, crossed demographics, crossed every division in American public life. Left, right, and center all agreed on one thing: good riddance to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And back home in Britain, the reaction was even more visceral. One of the most prominent media personalities in the country went on a rant that captured the national mood with startling accuracy. She pointed out that they had failed at everything they tried in America. The businesses, the quasi-royal tours, the celebrity aspirations, the documentary, all of it failed. And now they were crawling back to use the only currency they had left, which was that Harry used to be a royal. Even commentators who had previously been sympathetic were stunned. One well-known American television personality, previously a vocal supporter of the couple, was rendered literally speechless on camera. After all that consternation, he said, after the Oprah interview, after all of it, and now they are just going back? Make up your minds, he said. Good luck. Whatever. That is what support for Harry and Meghan sounds like now. Whatever. But the reaction that matters most is the one happening inside Kensington Palace, inside the private apartments of the Prince and Princess of Wales, because this is where the real damage lands. Prince William and Catherine have spent years executing a very deliberate strategy. I want you to understand how calculated and historically informed this strategy is, because it reveals the stakes of what Harry has just blown up. William and Catherine have been using the Duke of Windsor playbook. This is not a casual reference. This is a conscious, studied, deliberately implemented institutional strategy with a 90-year track record of success. After King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee, the royal family faced exactly the same problem they face today. A glamorous couple, one a royal, the other a charismatic American outsider, living abroad, generating headlines, threatening to overshadow the actual working monarchy with the sheer force of their personal drama. The Queen Mother, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, understood something that King Charles apparently does not. She understood that attention is a zero-sum game for the monarchy. Every column inch devoted to the Windsors in exile was a column inch stolen from the reigning sovereign, so she froze them out, completely, ruthlessly. For decades, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor were not invited to state occasions. They were not given roles, they were not rehabilitated, they were not brought back inside the tent. They were left to wither in their Parisian villa, growing older, growing less interesting, growing irrelevant. And it worked. By the 1960s, nobody cared about them. They were a historical footnote, a cautionary tale, an answer to a pub quiz question. That is precisely what William has been trying to do with Harry and Meghan. Exile, distance, the slow fade. Let time erode their relevance until they become a curiosity rather than a threat. It was working. Harry's public approval ratings in Britain had cratered. Meghan's were even worse. Their media appearances were generating diminishing returns. The Netflix content was underperforming. The Spotify deal was dead. The celebrity friends were drifting. The American public was losing interest. 5 more years of that trajectory and Harry and Meghan would have been functionally irrelevant, remembered as a cautionary tale about what happens when you abandon duty for fame and discover that fame has an expiry date. But King Charles has blown that strategy to pieces. And this is where I have to be honest with you, even though it is uncomfortable, because I consider myself a monarchist and I do not take pleasure in saying this. King Charles has failed Prince William. He has failed the institution, and there is a pattern here that we cannot ignore. Remember when we were told Camilla would never be queen? Charles said it publicly. Do not worry about it. She will never carry that title. And then she became queen. Remember when he affirmed that he would be the defender of the faith, the head of the Church of England? Continuing the tradition that has defined the constitutional relationship between the monarchy and the nation for nearly 500 years? And then the sovereign grant documentation was altered to read Defender of Faith, dropping the definite article, opening the door to a multi-faith framing that strips the role of its historical specificity. Remember when we were briefed after the death of Queen Elizabeth II that King Charles understood the responsibility, that he would stay out of politics, that he would continue the great work of his mother? And then he opened Windsor Castle for interfaith prayers, pursued a climate agenda that many in his own country found politically charged, and now has apparently nodded through the return of the very people who tried to burn the monarchy down on American television. There is a pattern. And the pattern is this. Charles says one thing and does another. He chips away at traditions incrementally, each individual change presented as minor, reasonable, insignificant. But the cumulative effect is the erosion of everything that makes the monarchy what it is. And bringing Harry and Meghan back inside the tent is the most dangerous chip yet. Here is what a veteran royal reporter revealed. The king's strategy, if you can call it that, is to bring the couple back into the royal fold in order to regain some form of control. The thinking goes that if they are outside, they are uncontrollable. They leak, they give interviews, they publish memoirs, they make documentaries. They are a rolling embarrassment with no institutional check on their behavior. But if they are inside, the theory goes, the palace can manage them, constrain them, direct them. This is catastrophically naive. Let me explain why with a thought experiment. Imagine you own a business. 2 employees spend 3 years publicly trashing the company, accusing the leadership of bigotry, revealing confidential internal communications, selling their version of events to competitors, and actively trying to damage the brand. They burn through their own resources, fail at every outside venture, and then show up at the front door saying they want their old jobs back. Not because they are sorry, not because they have changed, but because they are broke and desperate and have nowhere else to go. Would you rehire them? Would you give them an office, a title, a security detail, and access to your most sensitive operations? Of course you would not. Because you would know, with absolute certainty, that the moment it suited them, they would do it all again. They would leak, they would brief against their colleagues. They would use their insider access to generate content for their next media deal, and you would be paying for the privilege of being betrayed a second time. That is exactly what King Charles is doing. And the person who will bear the greatest cost is Prince William, the future king who now has to manage a father who has undermined his strategy, and a brother who is about to be physically present in the same country, attending the same events, courting the same charities, and generating the same toxic media cycle that William has spent years trying to extinguish. Now, let me tell you what I think is actually going to happen, because this is where Operation Thor enters its most dangerous phase. Phase 1 is underway. Harry lands in the United Kingdom. The children are enrolled in school. The family establishes residence. The media runs wall-to-wall coverage. Every royal reporter in the country gets a briefing from the Sussex camp about how this is a fresh start, how Harry just wants to be close to his family, how the children deserve to know their grandfather, the king. Phase 2 begins within weeks. Harry starts making appearances at charitable events, veterans organizations first, because that is his strongest card, Invictus Games connections, military charities, mental health campaigns. Each appearance generates a photograph. Each photograph generates a headline. Each headline keeps him in the public conversation. And each public engagement moves him incrementally closer to the threshold of being classified as performing official royal duties. Phase 3 is the security play. Once Harry can demonstrate a pattern of public engagements, his legal team petitions for a review of his security status. The argument writes itself. He is living in the United Kingdom. He is performing charitable work on behalf of the crown. He is a member of the royal family. His children are in the line of succession. The threat assessment has changed. And the government, already on record calling it a private matter, has no political appetite to fight it. The security is granted. The taxpayer picks up the bill, millions of pounds a year, indefinitely. Phase 4 is the one I am most worried about because it involves Meghan, and this is where the dual narrative becomes essential. If the marriage holds, Meghan starts positioning herself as a working royal adjacent figure. She attends events with Harry, she revives her brand in the British market. She uses the royal connection to rebuild a commercial empire on British soil, with British taxpayer-funded security following her to every product launch and every magazine photo shoot. But if the marriage does not hold, and the evidence suggests this is a very real possibility, then Harry has already achieved his primary objective. The children are in England. English courts have jurisdiction. And Harry, as a senior member of the royal family, fifth in line to the throne, has a claim to residency and custodial arrangement that would be almost impossible to replicate in a California courtroom. Either way, Harry wins. Either way, the British public pays. And that brings me to the question I promised to answer at the beginning. Why is this the greatest threat to the monarchy since the abdication? Here is my framework for understanding what is actually at stake, and I want you to think about this carefully, because the mainstream coverage is not giving you this analysis. There are 3 pillars that sustain the modern British monarchy. The first is public consent. The monarchy exists because the British people broadly agree that it should exist, not unanimously, not without debate. But there is a working consensus that the institution serves a purpose, that it provides continuity, stability, and a focal point for national identity that an elected head of state cannot replicate. The second pillar is institutional discipline. The monarchy works because its members follow rules. They do not air grievances publicly. They do not monetize their access. They do not weaponize their personal dramas against the institution. The third pillar is financial accountability. The public funds the monarchy through the sovereign grant, and in return, the monarchy provides value, whether through diplomacy, tourism, charitable patronage, or soft power projection. The deal only works if the public believes the money is being well spent. Harry and Meghan threaten all three pillars simultaneously. Their return without public support undermines consent. Their track record of leaking and monetizing demonstrates contempt for institutional discipline. And the looming security bill, potentially millions of pounds per year for two people who have spent 3 years attacking the institution from abroad, obliterates any sense of financial accountability. If the king allows this to proceed unchallenged, he sets a precedent that says, you can leave, trash the family, fail commercially, come back, and the taxpayer will still fund your lifestyle. That precedent does not just damage the monarchy, it destroys the social contract that makes the monarchy possible. And that is why this matters so much more than a family squabble. This is not about whether Harry and William can patch things up over Christmas at Sandringham. I would not hold my breath on that, by the way. Multiple sources close to Kensington Palace have made it unambiguously clear that Prince William and Catherine will not welcome these two back under any circumstances. The word that keeps coming up in background briefings is traitors. That is not my word, that is the word being used inside the Palace of Kensington. Traitors. Lecturers, people who abandon their duty, trash their family, and now want the benefits without the accountability. Let me be equally clear about the political dimension, because this is not just a royal story, it is a political story, and the politics are ugly. Harry and Meghan are being positioned as soft power assets for the current Labour government. That is not speculation. That is observable from their public statements, their consistent alignment with Labour policy positions on online censorship and content regulation, their echoing of globalist talking points on climate activism and social justice frameworks, and their documented connections to political operatives in Westminster. When Harry visited Ukraine, the government claimed it knew nothing about the trip. The palace claimed it knew nothing about the trip. A member of the royal family walked into an active war zone and nobody in government or the monarchy knew? That is absurd. That is insulting. And if it were true, it would be a security scandal of staggering proportions. But of course, it is not true. It is a convenient fiction designed to give everyone plausible deniability while Harry conducts soft diplomacy on behalf of interests that never have to be publicly declared. The Prime Minister's refusal to engage on the security question is not neutrality, it is complicity. Because if the government wanted to block taxpayer-funded security for the Sussexes, it could. The mechanisms exist, the legal framework is clear, the precedent is established, they are choosing not to, and that choice tells you everything about the political calculation being made. Harry and Meghan are useful to this government. They are famous, they are controversial, they generate media attention. And they can be deployed to advance narratives that the government itself cannot push directly. That is the definition of soft power, and we, the public, are going to be paying for it. A public poll conducted across social media on the day of the announcement showed 78% of respondents saying that King Charles should block the return. 78%. Only 22% said there was nothing the king could do. That is not a divided public. That is an overwhelming consensus being ignored by a monarch who has apparently decided that his personal relationship with his son matters more than his constitutional obligation to his subjects. And that brings me to the supporters, the so-called Sussex squad, because even they are struggling to justify this. The propagandists who have spent years defending every Sussex decision, spinning every PR disaster, attacking every critic, even they were caught flat-footed by this reversal. One prominent television personality who had been among the most vocal Sussex defenders was left fumbling on air, unable to explain how the couple could accuse the royal family of racism, flee to America, spend 3 years monetizing their grievances, and then turn around and move back as though none of it happened. The cognitive dissonance was visible. But it got worse. One Sussex-aligned commentator went on television and suggested, apparently seriously, that Harry should become King Henry IX. Think about what that statement actually means. For Harry to become king, Prince William would have to die, Prince George would have to die, Princess Charlotte would have to die, Prince Louis would have to die. That is 4 people, 4 members of one family. And a supposed mainstream commentator casually suggested it on national television as though it were a reasonable aspiration. That same commentator then pivoted to suggesting that Prince William and Catherine's marriage was in trouble, a baseless smear designed to deflect from Harry and Meghan's own widely reported marital difficulties. That is the level of discourse being deployed in defense of the Sussex return. It is beneath contempt. So, where does this leave us? Let me pay off every thread I have opened, because I promised you answers and I do not believe in leaving you to search for them elsewhere. Operation Thor is real. It is a coordinated, multi-phase plan to return Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to the United Kingdom, reintegrate Harry into some form of royal life, and ultimately secure taxpayer-funded security. The codename alone tells you this was not a casual conversation. This was a strategic operation, planned over months, briefed to selected media allies, and executed with the timing of a military campaign. The financial motive is confirmed. Multiple sources, including a biographer who has written the definitive account of the Sussex departure, have stated plainly that the couple is desperate, out of money, and out of options. Hollywood rejected them, Spotify dropped them, Netflix is disengaged, the American public lost interest, the lifestyle brand flopped. There is nowhere left to go but home. The custody theory is credible. The legal positioning of moving the children to the United Kingdom before any potential separation is consistent with the advice of any competent family law solicitor, and multiple well-connected commentators have publicly stated they believe this is the true motivation. Whether or not the marriage survives, Harry has now ensured that any custody dispute will be adjudicated in British courts, where his royal status carries institutional weight. The security trap is set. By re-establishing United Kingdom residency and performing even minor charitable work, Harry moves himself back into the cohort of people eligible for state-funded protection. The government has already signaled it will not fight this. The Prime Minister has already washed his hands. The bill will land on the taxpayer. The monarchy is at risk. Not today. Not tomorrow. But the precedent being set by King Charles, the precedent that says you can betray the institution, monetize your grievances, fail commercially, and then return to the public purse, that precedent corrodes the social contract that makes a constitutional monarchy viable. If Prince William does not find a way to contain this when he becomes king, the damage could be irreversible. And what about Meghan? This is the question that every informed observer is asking quietly, but that very few are willing to answer publicly. A royal historian who has studied this situation extensively expressed what many insiders are thinking. This is Harry moving back to Britain. Meghan might come back for a while, and then Harry might stay. And Meghan might return to California. The British public has not forgotten the Oprah interview. They have not forgotten the Netflix documentary. They have not forgotten the accusations of racism. They are not going to cause any trouble for her, because that is not the British way, but they are not going to give her the adulation she craves either. And for someone with Meghan's documented need for public validation, that chilly politeness may be worse than outright hostility. The skepticism is not mine alone. It is shared by historians, by reporters, by palace insiders, and increasingly by members of the public who have watched this couple say one thing and do another for 6.5 years. Here is what I want you to take away from all of this. Do not trust the narrative being constructed in front of you. Do not accept the framing that this is a heartwarming homecoming. Do not believe the spin that Harry just wants to be close to his family. Look at the financial trail. Look at the legal positioning. Look at the security implications. Look at the political alignment. And ask yourself one simple question. If this move were truly about family, about love, about coming home, why does it have a code name? Operation Thor was designed for one purpose: to return a disgraced prince to the public payroll without accountability, without consequence, and without the consent of the public whose money he will be spending. King Charles has allowed it, the Labour government has enabled it, and unless Prince William finds a way to stop it, the British taxpayer is going to be funding the Sussex circus for decades to come. 2,416 days. That is how long the British public had peace from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. As of this week, that peace is over. And the war for the soul of the monarchy has just entered its most dangerous chapter yet. Remember this moment, because when historians write about what happened to the House of Windsor, they will trace the fracture line back to here, to Operation Thor. To a weak king, a desperate prince, and a complicit government that decided the feelings of one man mattered more than the future of the crown. I want to leave you with one final thought. A monarchy is not a birthright. It is a contract. The crown provides stability, continuity, and service. The people provide consent, loyalty, and funding. When one side of that contract breaks down, the whole structure becomes vulnerable. And right now, King Charles is testing the patience of a public that has already watched one prince leave, trash the family, fail commercially, and worm his way back with a strategic smile and a sob story about wanting to see his father. If this succeeds, if there are no consequences, if the security is granted, if the taxpayer pays, then the message to every future royal is clear. There are no rules, there is no accountability. You can do whatever you want and still come home to the payroll. And that is a message that will echo far longer than Operation Thor. That is a message that could end the monarchy itself. Keep your eyes on the Invictus Games, because that is where Harry will make his next major public play. The charitable appearances will ramp up. The briefings will intensify. The pressure on Prince William will become unbearable. And when it does, I will be here to tell you exactly what it means, exactly who is pulling the strings, and exactly how much it is costing you. Until then, stay sharp. Question every headline. Read between every palace statement. The game is far from over, and the stakes have never been higher.